Hey everybody, so on this week's episode of Make It with Calvin, we're going to be using some of this to hopefully make this look a little better. I'll explain why in a minute. So this whole project literally started half as a joke, half as not with a friend. On Facebook, she had posted up a video of one of those snowball makers, like the tong style ones, and I was like, oh, I got a 3D printer, you know, send me your address and I'll send you something as a Christmas gift. So she's like, oh, okay. So I ended up printing these snowball makers. They're 2 halves. And because I didn't want the inside to have a bunch of scarring, I decided it would probably be smarter if I printed them this way, so all the support material would be down here. Now, for the sake of speed, when printing these, I ran them with a 0.6 nozzle at a 0.4 layer height. So already the quality in terms of visual on them was not going to be perfect. Then when you look at the underside, it is a little bit scary just because fat nozzles and not enough support is probably not the smartest idea. Oops, lesson learned. I rarely print with big nozzles. So I decided, you know what, I want to make these look a little better before I send them out. You know, I'd feel a little bit guilty if I'm like, hey, here's 3D print that looks really crappy and want some more? No, that's not my style. So I decided that I was going to try something a little bit differently when it comes to filling in the prints. Normally I use this stuff, which is Squadron putty. You've seen me use it in the past in other videos. It's good stuff. It's just the problem with it is, one, it's solvent based, so it smells really bad. And 2, because it's solvent based, California's like, oh yeah, we really don't want you selling that stuff in the state anymore. So it's becoming really hard to come by, at least in hobby shops, which is a little bit frustrating. Also, thirdly, I found the stuff is actually kind of hard to apply because it's so thick. You have to thin it down with other solvents and it just turns into a giant solventy mess, so it's not very fun. So what I've decided to do is, on the suggestion of other people, is I'm going to give this Elmer's Carpenter's wood filler a try. I picked up this tub for under $5 at the local Close Hardware, which is perfect. You could also get it in a tube, but that was about the same price for about like a third of the material. And I'm like, nah, I'll just get the tub, better deal. The stuff itself is interesting because it literally looks and has the consistency of thin peanut butter, which that's it right there, which actually makes it quite easy to apply compared to the Squadron putty. So according to the directions, I should probably let it sit for about 2 to 8 hours to really dry up good. What I'm probably going to do is apply some to this guy. This one was done off camera, so you can see what it looks like starting out. I went a little bit chunky on the application, but I figured out, you know what, should sand down pretty easily, so I'm not too worried. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, coat this guy, then stick them into the oven, running on the pilot light heat for a couple of hours. That should help speed up the process because, as you can tell from what I'm wearing, it's a little bit chilly today here in SF. So let's apply some to this guy, stick it in the oven, and a couple hours from now, sand it, paint it, and maybe do some weathering magic. Okay, so a couple hours later, here's where we're at. Pulled the parts out of the oven, and as you can see, I also sanded it, because let's face it, nobody needs to watch me sanding for like 20 minutes on camera. It's really boring. But I came along and I sanded a decent shape in there. I mean, that's the holder right there, so I'm not exactly like, oh, okay, it's got to be perfect. I mean, I wanted to cover over the nasty loose stuff and things like that, but it came together nicely. So this guy's been sanded. Then I went ahead on the other one and I gave it a nice coat of filler primer. Now you can tell the sanding still is not perfect in a couple of spots, but it is what it is. I don't have all week to try and sand it, and because of the handle in the way, makes things kind of difficult, etc, etc, etc. So now that we have this guy primed, the next step will be coming along and using some hammer coat paint to go over the whole model and giving it that hammer coat effect. Probably going to use about 2 coats of the paint. It should also help cover over any imperfections on the model surface as well. And then we'll come back and start discussing things like weathering. Very simple tips that you can use to make the model look impressive. My goal is to give it somewhat of a gunmetal look. So let's go throw some spray paint down and come right back. Okay, so it's the next morning. I decided to let everything sit overnight just because the paint went on a little thicker than I thought. So I figured it wasn't a bad idea. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to give this a little bit of a shiny effect so it has more of that kind of gunmetal look in a sense. It looks dull, then you move it in the right light and it looks kind of shiny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some metallic silver spray paint here. I'm going to hold the can far away from the model like this, and I'm literally just going to dust it with the paint. I'm just going to let it float on there. I'm going to do that over a couple of light coats, and it should give it a cool sparkling effect. Just like that. I'm not sure if you guys can tell or not on camera, but now this guy, relatively speaking, has just gotten none of it, so you can't really see any effect. But you can kind of see, hopefully, that this guy's got more sparkle and this guy doesn't. The effect is actually pretty cool. So I'm going to do it on this guy really fast, and then I'm going to stick these back into the oven to dry some more because it's been really cold out here and the paint has not like fully cured yet, and I got to ship these things out like today. So that's a pretty simple how-to on really how easy it is to take and using minimal work make a model go from to actually looking somewhat decent. Now, if anybody's wondering, the total time involved, not including printing to finish these and drying time and things like that, was literally about under an hour. It took me about 5 or 6 minutes to slap the filler on there. Then it took me about maybe 20 minutes tops each part to sand it, and then painting it is obviously extremely fast. So most of the time involved in this is in the drying process, and yes, I understand the models don't look perfect, but you know what? Compared to what they started out as, they look way the heck better. And really, you know, models like this are perfect to practice doing print finishing on, because let's face it, you can't really make it worse, you can only make it better. So I hope this inspired you guys to look into trying out print finishing. I understand not all models are as easy as this to finish, but you know what? At the same time, you gotta start somewhere and then you can work your way up. See you guys next time on Make It with Calvin.